And good afternoon, everyone. It's 3 p.m., and we are delighted to have you join us as we kick off another insightful session on connecting the dots. First and foremost, we extend our gratitude to the stalwarts of HR industry, our esteemed speakers, for their participation in this panel discussion. Dr. Tanaya Mishra, Global CHRO at InSolutions Global. Mr. Suraj Chetri, VP, Head of HR at Airbus India and South Asia and Head of Site, Bangalore. Ms. Mona Cherian, President and Global Head HR at Thomas Cook. And Mr. Satish Rajaratnam, Head People and Culture, IT and Administration at Meritus. A warm welcome to all. HRAI welcomes you all to the session on this insightful topic. Gen Alpha is coming. What will the workforce look like in 2030? To know more about HRAI and its events, I would request all our participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. I am pleased to introduce our moderator for today's session, Satish Rajaratnam, who will be guiding us through the discussion with his insights and expertise. Satish is a veteran HR leader with over 26 years of experience across industries, specializing in talent transformation, change management, agile leadership, and organizational strategy. Currently at Meritus, he leads global talent transformation and heads people and culture administration and IT for APAC. His career spans leadership roles at Mphasis, Cognizant, HCL Technologies, and Siemens, earning him recognition such as Forbes Top 30 Talent Leaders 2023 and Asia's 100 HR Power Leaders. A TEDx speaker, illusionist, and mentalist with 1300 plus performances, Satish is also an author with books and patents to his credit and actively contributes to the academia and social causes through advisory and philanthropic roles. To know more about Satish, you can follow him on LinkedIn. The link has been shared in the chat window. We are delighted to have you as today's moderator. To take the discussion forward, I now hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Faisal. Hi, everyone. Um, Initially, all of us, the panelists in the quorum, we thought we would run through a series of questions and try to answer and then try to share our perspective. Then we thought, let's make it as interactive as possible. There could be some guiding um, lines, for want of better words. But then we'd really want to make it as interactive as possible, right? Put your hand up whenever you want to kind of bring in your thoughts, your perspectives, share your side of the story. Feed forward is something I would like to look at. Uh, so that's how we want to structure this entire half hour, 45-minute kind of session. But quickly, let me jump on to intros to our lovely panelists that we have with us, right? Mona Cherian, I know Faisal did call out about Mona. She's a HR leader from Thomas Cook, about 35 years of global experience that she's got. Played a pivotal role in shaping corporate strategy, culture, and policy across group companies. With strong focus on exec leadership, development, HR strategy, diversity, inclusion, and equity as well. Passionate about building equitable workplace. Mona has led women in leadership initiatives at NASCOM, NHRD, BMA, and she's very active in all of the DEI across corporate India. Right. Welcome, Mona, to this panel. Next is Tanaya Mishra. Again, known, distinguished HR leader, extensive global experience. She's currently the CHRO of InSolutions Global. She focuses on building future-ready talent and agile workforce. Leadership journey spanning across APAC at Accenture, Global CHRO for Strides, VP and Head of HR for Endo, and a lot of corporate houses. She's passionate about integrating psychometric assessments, career pathways into HR strategy. Tanya is also an active contributor to industry forums like us, like this, shaping the future of talent and leadership in India and landscape. And last, but then a good friend of mine, Suraj from Airbus, leader, HR leader with about 32 years of diverse experience, though I call him HR leader, but then he's been into sales, marketing, manufacturing, automotive, aerospace, you name it, and he's been there and done that. And right now he's the HR leader for Airbus, right? Held senior roles across Bosch, Textron, Bata, and various other companies, and headed for head of HR for India, South Asia at Airbus currently, and that's what you see there as well as a title. With international exposure in Germany, US, Europe, Asia, Suraj is a globetrotter and global with global experience as well. Let me put it that way, right? Life member of NHRD, ISTD, NIPM. Suraj is also board member, mentor, advisor to a lot of startup companies, and a sort of a speaker at leading institutions and all other HR forums that you see outside as well. Yeah. So with that quick introduction and brief introduction, we thought we will straight jump on to the topic of Gen Alpha, right? I know there are a lot of cliches, a lot of nomenclatures that have been called out. When you say Gen Alpha, people will start doing stereotyping to an extent, or a lot of perceptions drawn out, and so on and so forth. Quite honestly, let me set the context. We hire a lot of Gen Alphas in our company as well. The kind of mind that they bring into the table is phenomenal. It's unique, right? They come in with a purpose. They kind of go behind that, and they get it resolved and solved, right? That's my cliche, very, very high level statement about Gen Alpha, right? So having said this, let me quickly move on. Mona, if I were to turn this out to you, whilst Gen Alpha will be the first gen to grow up entirely in the digital first world, and having said that, my daughter in her 8th grade, she's already started writing Python codes and PHP, which is to me ridiculous because I'm trying to hire people with Python and PHP for my company, and it's finding it tough. But they've started doing that, right? There are a lot of, they've started writing XMLs, they've started writing websites right now and scripts right now. So given that context, being the first generation to grow up in totality with digital first world, in your view, Mona, what unique traits or skills do you think that they're going to bring in to the next gen workforce or the workplace, if you were to?
So, Satish, I completely agree with you that it's a digital, comfortable world for them, right? Some of us in Gen X learned technology, and technology sort of came around us when we were growing up. And as we grew in our careers, we adapted to technology, learned the technology. The next generation became comfortable with using technology all the time and sort of leveraged it for their day-to-day work. Gen Alpha has grown up with technology already all around them, and things like AI are part of their morning breakfast, so to speak, right? For us, it is something we need to learn. For that generation, it is something which they have grown up with and are going to continue to grow with. So, first of all, they're going to be fluent in technology, and therefore they're going to expect the work culture to be one which is technology enabled. The employers need to ensure that they provide them with that kind of a setup for them to thrive. Otherwise, there's going to be fair amount of dissonance in the way they work. Their ability to be creative and create content is a given. So if you just look at things like LinkedIn or any of the other tools that they use, they seamlessly move from one to another, and social media is part of their everyday life. We log into social media sites, use it for maybe a few minutes in a day and get out. For them, it is a way of life. So living in a world which is completely social media centric, so to speak, is part of their regular day-to-day work. Their ability to be creative is absolutely phenomenal. So I'll give you an example. Just recently, I recruited a Gen Alpha, individual who was helping me in creating just one poster which I wanted. It took her precisely 3 minutes to come out with a poster, which if I had given to one of my, other team members, would have probably taken 2 hours. Yes, the content and the experience will be slowly determined for this generation, but the exposure is phenomenal. their ability to look at so much data which is available to them on their fingertips. Some of it may not be absolutely accurate, but they have the ability to look at a lot of data to make decisions. Decision making will be very data based. In the older generations, it was data and it was gut. Here, data being available, possibly they'll rely more on data and less on the gut. And they tend to include because they've grown up in an inclusive world and they will continue to be inclusive, is my 2 bits on this.
Brilliant, right? So it's data and decision making. The velocity is something that's going to be the key, and that's where Gen Alpha is moving towards. I mean, from what we summarized from what you said, Mona. Thank you so much for that. Tanaya, if in your perspective, what could be the trait and skills that the Gen Alpha is bringing to the table today, and how is this going to transform, the future of workforce, Tanaya?
So I work for a fintech company, and Gen Alpha is something that we hire all the time. So because we are a tech company, it's technology and finance. So we are always hiring coders and business analysts. So what we find is this generation is a generation which, like Mona said, is used to looking at data, looking at screens, looking at any kind of TikTok. They've grown up with it. So this is the time, if you look at the overall way the Gen Alpha has been brought up, they were usually born between the COVID phase, and they are very, very technologically savvy. So when you are hiring Gen Alpha, it is a fact that they are curious, but also let's take it with a pinch of salt. What happens is their attention spans are very, very short. Their seriousness to delivering particular, they have a mind of their own. So what happens is if you're trying to put them into a certain category or trying to drive certain pieces, it becomes a little difficult. Gen Alpha is somebody, like you said, your daughter is doing Python. Yes, we are doing artificial intelligence, and we're doing we're doing adjunct AI, we're doing, generative AI. And, so AI is something which is very, very easy for them to come by. But getting them to implement something on terms of schedules or timelines is something which we are very, very difficult to find. They will write the codes, they're very easy. If you're giving them any kind of a algorithm, they're easy to crack it. Java or Python comes very, very naturally to them. But what is difficult is getting them to collaborate with each other because they have a mind of their own. And also they suffer from anxiety. So that's the other thing which I wanted to say. So both good and not so good. You're on mute. Satish, you're on mute, unfortunately.
Sorry, I had a cough and I put on mute myself. My bad. No, so it's both good and not good. I think that's a good takeaway as well in terms of how we're going to use this, for the betterment from a future of work perspective. I think that's also very, very critical. Suraj, if we were to turn this on to you, what's your take on, skills that are going to transform future of work, right? Especially from Gen Alpha, as to we've heard about velocity, decision making, and all of these that Tanaya also spoke about. What, according to you, is going to change from a skill perspective?
The good thing about going last is you can say I agree to everything that the respected panel has already said and be done with it. A little bit of homework that I did made me realize that Gen Alpha is the age group that is between 2010 and 2024. And the focus that we're looking at is what will the workforce be like in 2030? I think we are finished with the English language, and now we are starting Greek, and understanding these people will be Greek nations. I think 2 billion people will get into the job, creating a revenue of 6 billion by 2030. And I think they're highly influenced by their millennial parents. And I think it'll be the largest generation in history that comes heavily loaded with tech experience and tech behavior. And definitely they will be future workforce shapers, because from birth itself, they've been immersed with digital technology. I was just reading an article and they were saying that even a kid 5 years old today has at least about 2.5 hours of screen time. And that's kind of crazy. And they've got a unique perspective of understanding that anything and everything can be done virtually. For them, interactions is social media, is social interaction, physical interaction is not that important to them. And I think what's going to happen is we'll have a very highly engaged ecosystem on interactive media. And thinking about these things, probably we can go into details later on of how this is going to influence the entire workforce in the future. And thank God I'll not be in the workforce. I would be retired by 2030. Back to you, Satish.
Interesting. I think you should count one more to that workforce, Suraj, that you just called it in the last line. So Suraj, I'm going to start off with you again, right? Having said this, workforce of the future, how do you think by you called out by 2030? So I'm going to start off with that and continue with that. By 2030, the Gen Alpha is going to enter a different work segment altogether, right? How do you think they will reshape the employer's expectation, right? And compared to, you spoke about millennials, we also have Gen Zs and X and boomers as well, right? How are they going to kind of change? What expectations are going to change from an employer perspective with Gen Alpha in the next 5-10 years or so?
I think the whole expectation of the workforce is going to revolve around them. The transition is very evident even today, and it'll increase at a much faster pace. Earlier organizations used to say my way or the highway. It's going to be the same logic, but the organizations will be at the receiving end. And I think this generation is going to take up a lot of space on formal education and degrees because they have a lot of time and appetite to learn. They're going to be very environmental conscious, and they will decide what to do or what not to do depending upon the impact companies have on organizations. And I think the workforce that will come in is going to be obviously tech savvy, AI savvy, and so mundane things is not going to interest them at all. Highly digitally natives, advanced digital literacy, which we have not seen so far. I think innovation is going to be key for them. They'll be globally connected, have access to the net 24/7, and probably this will be the generation where we will probably see, chips implanted in humans so that they can continue to be online all the time. They will be visual learners, and I think personalized learning will be very important to them. But at the same time, they will be value driven. A lot of decisions that they take on brands, causes will reflect, the value system that they have. That is something that impresses me. They are more vocal and conscious of their value systems, unlike the other generations that have a value system but are very subtle and are not expressive. Collaboration is going to be key. And so if you really look at social consciousness, collaboration, the digital part of it, I think all this will have to be included by the employers to create an ecosystem that is conducive for them. Otherwise, you're not going to hold them. And probably we'll talk later about can we really hold them or not. But I think that's the whole work ecosystem is going to change for the good.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Suraj, for that. Now, there's a question on the window as well. Like we said, we're going to make it interactive. Thank you for that question, Shanta Selvan. So, Tanaya, if I were to turn on to you and ask about how would all the three generations work together? I think that's the question that they've asked for after Gen Alpha coming in. I know the panel here is is different, or at least Suraj and I are in a different league, maybe in the boomer side, but then not as much as Tanaya and Mona. But how is this going to span out, right? You have 3 generations out there. How is the Gen Alpha going to come in?
I'm definitely going to be around in 2030 for sure. Look, I think that see the way the work is, the work environment is changing, right? And I would not say that it would be very difficult for for the 3 generations. If you look at it, it's been something which has evolved through time, right? So earlier, when you had Gen Z, saying, "Oh, what are we going to do?" I mean, I was part of those discussions too. So, but what I'm saying is, the entire way the world is operating is going to be different. There will be jobs which will not be there anymore. More and more people will learn coding. More and more people will have agentic AI use, which means that you are going to have agents which will write the codes, and you will therefore support. So the roles that we have today will change, which means that it is just not this alpha gen alpha which is going to be changing. It's the whole ecosystem which will change. So when you're saying that, how are these 3 going to be there? They've always existed. Let's understand that as we evolve, you and me probably didn't know what was AI, right? Or for machine learning. And of course, fortunately, I was in a tech company, so I was exposed to machine learning. But we didn't have AI too much, right? So as the organizations evolve, roles are also evolving. So I do not see it as a challenge for the 3 generations to work together. However, as leaders or as professionals, it is very essential to be aligned to the needs of today and ensure that the skills which are relevant for the industry are taken care of. Why am I saying that? Because there's be a lot of, like the BPO industry, which has a lot of people who are probably taking calls. That's going to be eliminated because you're going to have an agent taking that call and giving you decisions. All our policies and systems, and we built Deepa when I was in Accenture. We built a robo called Deepa way back in 2015. Chatbots will be there, so which means that those that all your queries will that we were having to resolve is going to change. So the roles that are there at the organization will change. What we need to take cognizance of is what are we as leaders going to do to ensure and embrace the change and ensure that our employees are skilled to be able to adapt to this change. Over to you, Satish.
I think that partially answers Shantashivan's next question as well, the high anxiety and how we break this down. It's about roles that we create and how leaders try to shape and bring the entire generation together and work for a common outcome. And not just look at it as a task, but look at it as an outcome for the customer, for the end customer, and see how we can work together. But rightly said, right? Agentic AI is going to change the way that we are functioning. There are low code, no codes right now. There are agents that are writing codes right now. When you have scanners, you scan and put them on an AI. It does everything for you, right? So what's going to happen? The entire digital tech, the way that we view itself is going through a paradigm shift, right? So having said this, Mona, if I were to turn back to you, Gen Z emphasized flexibility and purpose. Most of us, right? Like I think Suraj, you called out the way that it is, or Tanaya in your note as well, you spoke about it. What values do you think Gen Alpha will prioritize, right? When they choose their employers, right? If I were to go and look out for a role, what sort of employers would they look forward to?
So, Satish, here I'd like to bring out the point that most of the alpha generation was essentially during COVID times, right? So they've been through a very difficult patch very early in their childhood, right? Some of them either had to school remotely, or some of those, who possibly weren't in school actually had to do only homeschooling. This was for a period of at least 1.5 to 2 years. So there is a comfort with being alone, right? And that comfort from working on their own now needs to be slowly changed over a period of time into working in teams. And that does not come naturally to Gen Alpha. And exactly what Tanaya said, we have challenges in ensuring that they collaborate because it does not come naturally. To Gen Z, it was natural to collaborate. Gen Alpha, it is not natural to collaborate, though they collaborate virtually in a tech zone or in a, virtually on some media. But when they're sitting with two people sitting side by side, invariably they're WhatsApping each other or they're communicating through some tool. You don't find them walking up and talking to each other. So for organizations to put that out in the open and actually promote a culture where there is fair amount of networking, collaboration, brainstorming is going to be actually an effort which was not needed earlier. The second part is all of them face a high amount of anxiety and burnout on the job because they overthink things. And making sure that we provide health programs for them, which are not just perks, but actually part of the DNA of organizations to make it comfortable to be at the workplace, collaborate with each other, have fun in the workplace, is what organizations need to do. Because unless they do that, there is going to be a high degree of burnout. There's also the competition with not a person, but sometimes with a bot. And with when you're competing with technology and a human mind, obviously there is one winner, and we know who the winner is, who's programmed to do something on the routine, but not in the innovation. And we need to actually distinguish that with our employees at large to say routine will be taken over by possibly a bot, a machine. But what we really need employees to do is innovate and think out of the box and help the bot decide what to do, which unfortunately is a challenge, but will happen at some point in time. Another completely different area, and I would like to highlight this, a large amount of information that people churn out today is from a chat GPT or any other AI tool. So where does authenticity and actual honesty of what you have generated come out? And that fine line between authenticity and reuse of somebody else's work needs to be drawn, and drawn very openly in organizations, because often communications, articles, etc., are really copies which the bot generates, and that doesn't help, right? We need to progress. So I'm giving the other side besides the advantages.
Very, very well articulated, Mona. I mean, that's critical, right? I mean, if in our ages, I mean, when I say our ages, I mean, we used to write emails with not so much of Run and Martin, but yeah, we used to write emails, but then there could be some errors here or there. But today you get to see clean and neat and all emails all done in a jiffy with some lexical that we wouldn't have even heard about. And then you get to see the bold underlining, everything happens. And we know for sure that it's a GPT version of highlighting keywords and pronouns and all those verbs and putting it together and things like that. But having said that, authenticity, I mean, that's a key that I'm going to take back. And I'm going to keep that as a premise now and turn this on to Suraj, if you will. With this upbringing of hyperconnectivity and AI-driven world, everything is driven by GPT and so on and so forth. What could be Gen Alpha's views on leadership, for example? Or, I know we talk about strategy, a culture eats strategy for breakfast, but now it's tech all across. How is tech going to eat the culture part of it? Or is it going to be vice versa, right? How is this going to impact leadership? How is this going to impact organizational culture, Suraj?
I think that's a very valid question, but I think with Gen Alpha coming into the workplace, I also think the culture will need to change, and the culture will change. I think the organizations will have to decide on what is core and what is context. And I think certain values that they can say it's okay, but the others, which is a no-no. But I think if that is spelled out very clearly and described to everyone, especially the Gen Alpha, I think there will be no confusion about what we are getting into. I think this generation does not like the gray portion that we used to thrive on. They need either black or white, and then they can move with that and not worry about making mistakes. But if you leave it up to them to decide, it's going to be a potpourri or a khichdi. And my thoughts on leadership is the more that I'm seeing the younger generation, and I'm drawing extrapolation from millenniums, Z to alpha, they're not interested in leadership. And I think what will happen is that individual leadership concept, that hero or that guy that did miracles in organizations is no longer going to exist. Or even if it is there, it'll only be for administrative purposes. What it'll give rise to is a kind of a collaborative leadership where everyone takes their responsibilities, where teams are self-motivated, based upon the targets and the objectives that they have. And I think such a lot of talk about leadership probably will fizzle out moving forward with this generation. That's my personal views, not taken from ChatGPT, nor has it been taken from anyone else.
Perfect. So it's not got it. So this is typically collaboration between the panelists, if I mean you will. So Tanay, I'm gonna kind of start from where Suraj has just stopped. With AI driving everything out there, and to Mona's point as well, everything is being GPTized, right? Where the world is all AI mainstream, everybody talks about, and you spoke about agentic AI from a tech world that you're from as well. How is this going to influence in our world? We used to call it as be creative, be collaborative, right? And be curious, right? 3 C's that we keep harping about, right? Don't let these 3 go off. But with tech coming in, it's going to drive data, it's going to consolidate data, it's going to prescribe data, it's going to do everything using some algorithm, some LLM, some SLM, right? Given that, where are these 3 dimensions going to go off from being collaborative, being creative, and that all of these are going to impact career for sure. And to Suraj's point as well, the gig is also in the vogue right now. So most of the Gen Alphas are looking for, look, I would go for the small gig, I will get things done, then I'll move on to do another gig, right? May not have the same longevity like in our days that we used to have 10, 20, 30 years in a company and, work all through ages and so on and so forth. Given both the dimensions, where do you think, the collaborative aspect, the creativity aspect, from a career perspective, is moving towards Tanay?
Collaborative, creativity, and what's the third C that you said?
Curiosity.
Okay. So all 3 will still continue to exist, because if you look at it, after you have AI, agentic AI, what is next? What is next is adjunct AI, which means that the roles that you are performing, you will be looking at agents. And, you'll have these agents, trying to run amok, just like, we have our little children running amok. So as adjunct AI, so you being the specialist are going to be sitting and monitoring these agents and ensuring that they do what they're supposed to do. If you don't do that, then obviously, the entire algorithm or the entire concept of agentic AI fails, right? So which means that you have to constantly look at agents. So therefore, let us firstly, taking from where Suraj was saying, I completely agree. But what has happened to this generation is that while they don't look at leaders, they're looking at mentors. They're looking at people who can help them in their journey, because there is a lot of anxiety in them. There is a lot of loneliness in them. So therefore, they're looking at leaders to be their mentors and help them in their journey as they become functional. Because if today, of course, most of them want to do a gig, but there are a lot of people who are also thinking out of the box in terms of startups. A lot of startups around this is taking place, which means that this collaboration is something which it doesn't come naturally, but we're seeing collaborativeness, and we're building that culture amongst the alpha generation which is coming in. Creativity, because you see, as organizations pursue their targets, there is a creative way in which all of us have to collaborate with each other to ensure that it happens. And curiosity, because what is the next? What is the next algorithm which will get you the profits? Having said that, there is an aspect of physical wellness which is needed, an aspect of mental wellness which is needed, and an aspect of financial wellness which is needed. So these are three things which we are finding, which is not there in the current, and this is all practical experience of working with Gen Alpha that we are hiring constantly all the time. They need guidance, they need support, they need a soft shoulder to cry on. So they're not looking at leaders who's barking orders. When you say, nah, we know that. So the entire approach is more of a friend, a counselor, and a mentor being there, because that's what they need. Yes, they're very sharp, but the attention spans are also very short. And they tend to sometimes overthink. So let's understand this. It's a full package deal. And I've tried to give you a 360 degrees over to the question that you asked.
Very well said. It's a 360 view of all aspects coming in together. Mona, if I were to turn this on to you, we've seen the tech side of it, we've seen the leadership side, we've seen the AI driving everything. In listening to all of these, perspective, right? Do you foresee Gen Alpha being more comfortable working with digital tech tools and platforms, and not as much with the human, I would say, for human teams perspective, right? What's your take on that, Mona?
I think it is already very much there. I don't think we need to look at Gen Alpha. That's a little in the future. If I look at the current generation, they are still a lot more comfortable working with technology and tools which are available rather than working with people. And we really need to get people to collaborate with each other. It is extremely important that we do that. And let me just take you back to how, let's say, a person like me started, and we started off with no email existing. There was no such thing as email.
Not sure it's me. Mona, we lost you, looks like.
No, we can't hear her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's tech really got upset when she said she started without internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get back into actually working with each other on email. Then we learned how to write emails. You could not use bold letters, you couldn't use capital letters, the fonts you used. So all that took some time for each one of us to learn. But I think as leaders, all of us adapted. And I think all of us are going to adapt equally seamlessly and smoothly for the Gen Alpha as well. Life changes. At one time when you were growing up, your parents said buy a house first, then buy a car, in that order. Now none of the Gen Z are told to buy a house. They rent a house and they use an Uber. Maybe next generation will say you don't even need a Uber, it's a driverless car, right? Life is going to change, and the main bottom line is to have adaptability and be willing to change. Irrespective of what you're doing in the workplace, as long as you adapt to the changing workforce, the changing technology, the changing environment, I think all of us will do brilliantly. Whether we are there in 2030 or not, I think three of us will not be there. Tanaya, all the best. But having said all that, I'm simply saying that we really need to be willing to change. As long as we're willing to do that, I think the battle is won.
Very well said. Right? Adaptability and willingness to change are the key pillars, right? And I know, Tanaya, you spoke about a little bit about gig, but I'm going to turn this on to you before I move on to Suraj. I'm going to ask another question for you, Tanaya. Hybrid, work from office, RTO, look at the cliches that are coming in, right? All across remote working, virtual distributed agile work. What do you think would be the preferred work style for Gen Alphas? Or I would say it is also on to what Mona said right now. They're going to Uber to work, may not. They're not going to buy out a asset in terms of buying a car or a house right now, but they prefer to kind of save it for doing a staycation, vacation, whatever name that. There are a lot of new names that I'm not even aware of. I think that's where the Gen is moving on right now. But having said that, according to you, where do you think the work model is going to kind of suit for the Gen Alpha?
See, I think that one size doesn't fit all. It depends on the kind of industry one is. Like, for instance, I've done a lot of manufacturing. I've done a lot of retail. I've done pharma, and I've done consulting. I've done, so each of them is going to require a very different. So it's not right on my part to say that, to brush everything with the same brush. If it's manufacturing, then you just need to be in the office premises because it's a 24/7 operations. If it's steel, power, and stuff like that, heavy industries will definitely need. If it's pharma, again, it's essential. While corporate functions will have gig workers and they will have hybrid, but they will still need to ensure, because particularly if it's a generic, or sterile, where you need to have a particular kind of range, you definitely, because that's the antibody which is going into your system. So you definitely need to ensure that they pass the standards which are necessary, depending on where you are, MCHR if it's a US, or a US FDA if it's US, sorry, Europe, right? Whereas for an industry like ours, it is going to be a hybrid. And I think most industries today are preferring a hybrid where, if it's a client or a customer facing role, you just have to be in the customer premises. You can, or, if you are probably doing a gig, you can probably have, part-time. But if you look at after COVID, everybody, whether it was Elon Musk or it was our, Mr. Jindal, everybody wanted people to come back to work. There are benefits, but I think it's a percentage of a combination of hybrid of, depending on the industry, 80%, 20%, 50, 40, 60, So I think it's very, very difficult to answer that question, but I think it's best to have a hybrid way of working, because then what happens is, all the generations are taken care of. Because you see, for people like us, we're taking care of our ailing parents. I lost mine. In fact, I quit because a large company, because I have to take care of parents. So you see, you would want something like that. Whereas a lot of people would want that free time to write their codes or to research into anything that they're working on, right? So it's like I said, it's one size doesn't fit all.
One size doesn't fit all. So Suraj, I'm going to turn this on to you with the industry that you hail from. Whilst we're looking at the culture side of it, the digital side of it, collaboration, creativity, and so on and so forth, the working model is something that we just spoke about as well between Mona and Tanaya. Yeah, I'm not going to ask a very radical question. Will the business model even change basis the talent of Gen Alphas that are coming in? Because the way they look at work differently, at short burst, quick wins, pat on the back type, everything is here and now types, right? And not wait for longer, a kind of efficiency and velocity, but shorter, quick wins, for want of better words. Do you think the business models in itself will change, Suraj, or do you think otherwise?
I definitely think bang on the business models are going to change, because not only are we talking about this generation in the workplace, but be careful, the whole market, the whole ecosystem, the whole environment is again going to be mostly these people. And when we look at these people, things that you pointed out, reduced attention spans, internet addiction, social interaction deficits, mental health concerns, all that, when you put it together, I even go to the extent of thinking that even in manufacturing, there would be a lot of IoT, robots, remotes, sensors that will come into the picture, which will make it easy. Well, like we say today, that, the poor guy doesn't have an option not to work from the shop floor. Probably that will become reality moving further. And I think what's going to happen is, because of this generation, the whole overall, I would say, the value proposition of the organization may not change, but then they will slice it and dice it so that, you see that excitement, that enthusiasm, that going from one level to another, that will happen. And of course, hybrid, gig, remote, whatever you call it, I think it's going to be a combination of all these things. I don't know what nomenclature they will call it, but they want to do whatever they want, whenever they want, wherever they want. And we've seen that even in this generation. And whatever they feel like. And what this is going to do is they're going to encourage organizations. And I'll give you something crazy that you lured to, Satish, earlier. What's going to happen is they want to be connected 24/7, regardless of where they are. The lesser interactions they have, the better it is. The comfort of gaming, trying to do things parallelly, multitasking, as well as the comforts of home, or sitting on their sofa or whatever, lying on their bed, will have to be incorporated even into the workplace. And I was even thinking of crazy things, probably moving forward, the office may become what you were talking about, vacation places, resorts, pubs, joints, whatever you call it. You will have a resort companies will start making resorts in mountains, seasides, riversides, forests, fully digitized. The guy goes there, stays as long as he wants, works from there, interacts from there, and then moves to another location. And this would give ideas to a lot of startups and unicorns that they can invest into this idea, because they want to live life, they want to move about, detached from reality. Let me put that also there. Connected 24/7, and they don't want to follow the rules. They just want to go and have fun. And I think if you can combine these things, you would be the GPTW or the top employers of the world, I would say, moving forward in the future.
Break the rules, get into staycations. But I'm going to take that up. Suraj, just to borrow that thought, I'm going to turn this out. Suhas, we'll come back to you in a moment. Just one question and we'll get back to you. Mona, if I were to turn this and pick up from where Suraj had left, do you foresee the way the employee experience or engagement that's happening in today's context, do you foresee that it's going to change significantly? Is it going to be paradigm shift? Is it going to be incremental shift? What's going to change? I mean, in your perspective, and this is going to be for all the three of you, right? Once Mona's done, maybe Tanaya, you can pick up.
So I don't think there's going to be a paradigm shift, but there is going to be a slow and steady change. We are already changing, and to say that it's going to change in the future is incorrect. We are already changing. All of us are accepting that employees want to work in a hybrid culture. All of us are accepting that employees want to work at will. They don't want to be tied into long structures and long tenures, etc. If they find the organization something that gels with their mental state at that point in time, they're happy to do that. We also have to become comfortable, and one is the organization and how you engage with your people. It's also life. I'll give you a recent example. I went into one of the biggest chains, which is Hilton, into a hotel, and there was no reception. So there is no reception, which we're used to. You stand in a queue, you're third in the counter, wait till you get your key. Here, you don't have anything. You just sort of go to a counter, put in all the details about your booking, your key comes out automatically, and you pick your bags and you go into your room and you check out in the same manner. So if that is the way life is going to be, the need to interact with people in some areas is going to go down significantly. But at the same time, services that you hoped for also will not exist. And I'll take the same hotel example. If you choose not to get housekeeping done in your room for 2 days, you get X number of bonus loyalty points. That is a choice that is given to people today. So some people may choose it, some may say, no, I want those services. And why are organizations offering such choices? Because they don't have that much of a workforce. Post COVID, they don't have the workforce available to be doing certain tasks. You may have a particular set of people available to do what is called, quote unquote, the good jobs. And the not so good jobs have to either be automated or have to be done away with. You can't automate somebody making your bed. And that is the reason why they're choosing to see whether they can do away with it, maybe once in 3 days, etc. And that is the shift that each organization is going to have to make in the work that they do, irrespective of the business. This is just one example, but I'm sure each one of us is looking at what we have in our organizations, figuring out where are we getting resources, where are we not attracting resources, what can we automate and what can we not automate, and moving on from there. And therefore, the employee experience in the organization is also, I will do what I really want to do. I will not choose to do what I don't want to do. And unfortunately, organizations are going to have to adapt, change, and look at how they can address these issues. So it is going to change, a slow shift, not a radical shift, in my opinion, but it is there.
Okay. So incremental shift. Tanaya, if I were to turn out one area that you foresee from an HR practice perspective, from an employee experience standpoint, Tanaya, what would that be that you think that would also definitely change?
Well, Suraj took me to being Alice in Wonderland. So well, there is a possibility, but I don't see that coming right away. I see changes. I mean, for instance, we are now working on wearables. So you will not have credit cards anymore. You will probably have a ring which you will flash and then your credit card gets paid, right? Uh, we're also, let's also understand that we are looking at an AI orchestration where the different AI processes and AI models will the tools, the workflows are all going to come together. So let us understand that the environment that we are in is very dynamic, and organizations will shift towards or rally around those environments. So, which means that depending on the industry that one is in and the environment that one is in, you could at one end have, like Mona was saying, and that happens a lot in China, where you have little robots, who are even serving you. Why even, just not the card and the keys, but actually, coming to your room and serving you breakfast and lunch and dinner. But at the other end, you will still have people who want this end of service, which is the human touch of being there. So both will exist, because as long as humans exist on this planet, we still want that human touch. And that's the reason why I said that, this generation tends to be, lonely generation, wanting mentors, wanting to talk to people. Of course, that's the reason why, today in Japan, you have, girlfriends in the form of bots, right? So let's understand that both will exist. It's a very difficult question, but having said that, in the environment today, as HR leaders, it's about understanding what is the need of the organization. For instance, today we find that mental wellness is a big one for us. So therefore, how do you ensure that we are putting in practices and policies and processes around mental wellness, right? Also, you also understand that you need people to think out of the box and be creative and build those agents. So therefore, what is it that one can do to be able to get that out of the box thinking, to get people together, but at the same time collaborate and rally around an organizational objective because of which we all exist. So, long answer to a short question.
Thank you so much, Tanay. And in fact, I really want to quote something. I know we're another 4-5 minutes away. I saw this somewhere. I'm not able to recall. There are a lot of bots, like the apps that you said, that could help sort things out. I also saw this video where this is more like, like you book your Ubers and the Olas and the Swiggies and the Zomatos. With the advent of AIs and the digital world, people lose out on their human touch and friendship and so on. So this video was amazing, which said, look, phone a friend type, right? You can book a friend. So an unknown stranger, you can book, you can call him, her, you can do a walk over the beach across your street, meet physically and talk about, hey, how are you types, right? Outside of the digital world. So I know it's stretching to extreme, but having said that, Suraj, a quick rapid fire question starting from you. What is one skill that is essential for Gen Alphas to stay relevant? Keep the tech part away. If you want to bring in the HR element to it from a behavioral side, persona side, what is one thing that they should kind of build rapidly? One skill.
I think it's going to be their learning agility. Like I always say, the only digital gawar in this century will be someone who thinks he knows everything.
Brilliant. Okay. Mona?
I think it would be ethical working, because there's going to be so much of stuff around which you can just copy. To bring in true authenticity is, I think, a skill.
Brilliant. Okay. Tanaya? One skill.
I think it's a little different for me. I think it's empathy for leaders. It's collaboration for teams and peers. It is innovation for Gen Alpha.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much for all of these. I know Faisal has come back out there because it's on a minute go. But Mona,
I think
Tanaya,
Suhas had a question.
yeah. Suhas, you raised your hand. Sorry. We will quickly turn on to Suhas. Suhas, you can unmute yourself. You can ask the question or put it on the chat window. Either way is okay for us. Okay. All right. We'll stay connected. Suhas, reach out to any one of us. We'll be more than happy to take that up for you. But again, having said this, a fantastic discussion. I know a lot of questions that was looking out for answers came out. A lot of pondering that was done around between staycations to agentic AIs, the way that things are going to change, and tech is not going to eat culture as well as been established significantly, right? Being authentic is something that came out as well, very, very critically, and the skills that you all brought out as well. Again, thank you so much, Mona, Tanaya, and Suraj, for your thoughts and insights towards building 2030 Gen Alpha workforce. I'm going to turn this on to Faisal. Onto you.
Thank you. Thank you, Satish, for skillfully steering the discussion, ensuring a seamless flow of ideas and engagement. Thank you to all our esteemed panelists for sharing such valuable insights today. Your perspective on how Gen Alpha will shape the workforce of 2030 have given us plenty to reflect upon. We truly appreciate the time, thought, and expertise you brought to this discussion. For those eager to visit today's insights, the session recording is available on our YouTube link shared in the chat window. A special thanks to our event partners, Geisha, NASSCOM COE, Talgro, TLE, WICCI, LinkedIn Local Ahmedabad and India for their invaluable support in making this event a success. To learn more about these associations, please refer to the links provided in the chat. We look forward to welcoming you to our next session on the topic, the impact of global supply chain issues on financial strategy on September 4th, 2025. With that, we conclude today's webinar. Thank you for being part of this journey. Wishing you good health, positivity, and success until we meet again. Take care and farewell for now. Thank you, Satish, Suraj, Mona, Tanaya. It's been a real pleasure having you with us on this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot,
Thank you.
Satish.
Thanks all.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, sir.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.